Hey everybody! So in this video I'm summarizing and connecting lots of different ideas that we've learnt so far and basically putting it all together into how inheritance works. So this diagram here is a really good representation of how genes are inherited, and in particular how specific alleles are inherited from the parents down to the next generation in the children. So I'll do it with 5 different concepts we've learnt and explain how it all ties together. So firstly, we've learnt that each parent is diploid. So in all the cells of their body, except for their gametes, their sex cells, each person has 2 chromosomes. Sorry, 2 copies of each chromosome. So that's what diploid means. So if this is a particular human chromosome, then we can see the father here, he's got 2 copies of that chromosome. And so that means if we're talking about one particular gene, he's going to have 2 copies or 2 alleles of that particular gene, one on each chromosome. So in this case, the father has one variant of that gene, which is called the capital R allele, and he's also got the small r allele. But they're still the same gene, they're just different forms of the same gene. So each parent's diploid, so therefore they have 2 alleles of each gene. And it's the same for the mother too. So she's got 2 different alleles as well in this particular gene. So the next thing we've learned is that meiosis makes gametes. So meiosis is the type of cell division where it starts with a diploid cell and then it makes haploid daughter cells. And remember, this only happens in the gonads. So in males, it's the testes which make sperm, and in females, it's the ovaries that make eggs. And remember that gametes are haploid, like I said. And haploid means those cells only have 1 copy of every chromosome. So they've only got 23 chromosomes instead of 46, like our diploid cells, like all our other body cells. So that means that each gamete's only got 1 copy, or 1 allele, of every gene. So each gamete only has 1 allele of each gene. So when, there we go. So when the father went in his sperm cells, each sperm is either going to get the capital R allele or it's going to have the small r allele. And it's a 50-50 random chance which allele goes into each sperm cell. And the same for the mother's egg cells too. Alright, so that was the 3rd point. Next, so once the gametes have been made, then it's a random chance which sperm and egg cell actually meet together and join during fertilization. So it's a random chance which sperm and egg join together during fertilization. So that means there's a random chance which alleles will be combined together into the children. And that's the final point. So therefore, each child that they have has 2 random alleles from the parents. So they're going to get 1 of the random ones from their father and 1 of the random ones from their mother. And it's completely down to chance. So we can see on this diagram, this is showing all the possible alleles that could be passed on to the children. So if the father passes on his big R allele to a child, and the mother also passes on her big R allele, then this child is going to have 2 copies of that big R allele. And that's when they're diploid. So they're going to have 2 copies as they are a baby and as they grow up. All their cells are going to have 2 copies. But then there's another chance that the father would pass on his big R allele, but the mother would pass on her small one. And so that's going to end up with a child with one of each. And then the next case is vice versa. The father might pass on his small r, and the mother might pass on her big R allele. So this child's also going to have the same big R and small r alleles. Then finally, there's a case that the father and the mother both pass on their lowercase, their small r allele. So one of their children might have two small r alleles. So this chart is just showing the possible children. So it's all about probabilities. It's not saying that they're going to have 4 children and this is what exactly the alleles they'll have. It's saying these are the possibilities. There's a 25% chance of having each of these children, and it just comes down to probability. All right, so that is the overall scheme and the process for how alleles are inherited to the next generation.